is ready, I will go ahead and call to order the Thursday, March 14th, 2019 meeting of the Royal Oak Zoning Board of Appeals. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board table or adjourn your case to the absence of a full board, and we're down 2 people tonight, so keep that in mind out there in the audience. You must inform the chairperson immediately after the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit their presentations to 10 minutes, and each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit their comments to 3 minutes, which moves us right along to the approval of the minutes for the February 14th meeting.
Motion to approve.
I'll support.
Any corrections, additions, deletions? Not seeing any, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, do we have any old or unfinished business, Mr. Murphy? All right. Moving right along to item D1, which is our first case of new business. Case number 190307, public hearing on the special appealing of AutoZone Development LLC, petitioner, and 28202 Woodward LLC, owner for the following variances: waive 2 feet of the maximum allowable height of 30 feet to demolish a motel and construct an automobile parts retail store located at 28202 Woodward Avenue. Mr. Murphy.
At last month's Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission granted site plan approval to demolish the existing motel and to construct a 2-story auto parts facility and auto parts retail store, I should say. The ground floor of the proposed building is general retail sales, and the second floor is for storage and warehouse. In that particular zoning district, the ordinance allows for a maximum height of 30 feet. It's measured to the roof line, not the parapet wall. And I'll reference the petitioner's drawings, which illustrate the measurement to the roof line at 32 feet in height. Obviously, the top of the parapet wall or the coping is slightly taller than that, but we're measuring under the ordinance to the roof line of this flat roof building. Again, the ordinance allows for a maximum height of 30. They're seeking to a waiver in order to have the building at 32 feet in height. The petitioner's facade elevations are probably the strongest visual, and the petitioner can answer any questions that you might have with regard to the logic behind that request.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy? All right, not seeing any. Is the petitioner present? Please come forward, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Wesley Berlin. I'm with Spartan Engineering Solutions, the civil engineering consultant on the project. Also here representing AutoZone, the applicant tonight for this variance request. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your time and consideration for our approval request this evening. If I could, what I would like to do is maybe just explain some of the challenges and some of the difficulties with this particular site, and I think it'll lead nicely into why we're requesting what we are. This is a very difficult site to redevelop for many reasons. The first being the physical size of this property. It's 100 foot in depth, basically, from Woodward Avenue to the rear alley. 100 foot in that dimension, and then it's 155 foot long parallel to Woodward Avenue. That's just over 1/3 of an acre. By the time you take out 10% off the top that's required by zoning for the landscaping on the property, you're left with under 1/3 of an acre of buildable area that you can fit your building, parking area, drives, detention facilities, things like that on the property. So it's very compact. In addition to that, we have frontage on this property for multiple roadways and the alley, so there's setbacks that also basically further confine your developable area for the required site improvements. So we've attempted numerous layouts, different building types, building sizes, building orientations, locations, parking lot orientations, drive aisles, and really this made the most sense from an access management standpoint From a site planning standpoint, we worked very closely with the city staff, and I think where we've arrived makes the most sense, and I think that the fact that the site works, the only thing that we had to do that was kind of out of the norm for what we typically do is go to a two-story building. We've consolidated that building height to the best of our ability. We've done everything that we can to get the building height as low as possible. As Mr. Murphy stated, the zoning variance is for 2 feet, and that's relative to the roof line. The code actually allows for a 15-foot tall parapet wall. So in essence, a building could come in here with a 30-foot roof line height, a 15-foot parapet wall. So from anybody looking at this building from the outside, a 45-foot tall effective building height could go here. What we're proposing with a 32-foot roof line height and our parapet where it is, we're essentially 12 feet lower than what visually you could see by code. So again, with some of the limitations that we have, we've really tried to minimize to the best of our ability the height the best that we can. And then also to minimize any potential impacts with that building height, we've also done some additional things with our site layout. We've moved our building as far north on the property as we can, which basically gets it as far away from the adjacent residential property across the alley to the best of our ability. We've added a significant amount of landscaping to this property as compared to existing conditions. We've added screen walls around our parking area, so we've really tried to soften the appearance of the site, and from a functional standpoint, we've tried to again, minimize any impacts that what we're asking for would have on any adjacent property owners. Our building is proposed further away from the alley than the existing building, which I think is important too. Not just the height that we're asking for a variance for, but the fact that we're further from the alley, I think, is an important point. And then the physical length of our building along the alley is significantly less than the existing. Basically, the whole backside of the site is all building along that alley, and we're drastically reducing that building length along the alley as well. So I think overall, there's a lot of great improvements that we're proposing with this project. And with that, again, thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any specific questions that you guys may have.
Any questions for the petitioner? Yes, sir.
I know
And
you
then Ms.
said,
Anderson.
It's okay.
I know that you said you're civil, so you don't know necessarily about the building section, because I was going to ask you, what's the clear space on that second floor underneath the joist?
I might be able to give you a rough dimension off the
I don't think I saw a section.
off the elevation.
Although I'll, while you're looking for that, I do appreciate everything that you guys have done with this building. I think it's a pretty good design for urban location, and you've tried to make the site as nice as you can. In fact, yeah, if you wanted to be, it's one of those 6 of one, half dozen the other. Do you allow the mechanical unit to be exposed, or do you try and hide it by making the parapet higher by making the building taller because of the parapet? So.
Right, and to that point, there is a large amount of landscaping on the would be the, I guess, the north side or the opposite side of that alley too. So we thought the same thing. Do we raise the parapet? Do we, again, we're trying to not continually keep adding additional height to our building, and the fact that there is pretty significant landscape screening there was part of that decision as well. But that's a very good point. So for the second floor, you were asking the clearance to the joist?
Yeah.
14. It's again, don't quote me because I'm not 100% sure, but it's somewhere in the ballpark of 14 or 15 feet.
Okay.
I believe.
Ms. Anderson.
That might have been my question, I'm not 100% certain. I noticed that the AutoZones in Ferndale, Clawson, and Oak Park, they're all ranches, or not ranches. There's not real estate coming out.
store?
They're all
How
one
many bedrooms?
story. And brick. So I guess it seems to me that the ceiling height could be lowered only because it seems like you could easily have, I don't know, how many 10-foot ceilings, and and then still lower and still be able to maneuver around inside? That's where I'm not sure why you need such high ceilings, because at least especially on the first floor, because nobody's gonna be, as a consumer, climbing up on the stairs to get something.
A lot of it might have to do with their merchandising. I know, again, I've worked with AutoZone, and they've basically got their roof line height as low as they possibly can on both levels. Some of it might be with the height of their actual fixtures for how they store their merchandise within these floors. That would be my guess, is they've got to have these minimum heights. The stores that you're talking about are all one story. Typically, I've done probably close to 100 of these stores, and this is the first 2-story that I've ever done. So this is something that they don't typically do. They don't want to do. It's way too expensive, but they really want to be in this property, and they really want to come to the city. So the reason they're doing the 2 stories, there's just physically no other way for them to do it. But I can assure you that they've done everything they can. They wouldn't go through the exercise of a possible denial and go to these efforts unless they really didn't have any choice on that height. The exact science behind why it is what it is, my guess is it's the shelving and some of their interior, the way their fixtures are set up. But that's something that I've been told they've lowered it as much as they can.
Okay. I appreciate the,
Yeah, Mr. Klatt.
Oh, no, I'd say I agree too. I don't think the floor heights are excessive. You're only 14.1 from grade level to the second floor. That's
Right.
most retail today is significantly higher than that, so I'd say that's fairly low. Your second story does appear taller, but I assume that's due to your racking or storage needs up there.
Yes, exactly. In most of their 1-story buildings, I think their first, well, in this case, it's our first floor, but in a typical building, I think their joist bearing on that main level is even higher. I think it's 16. So again, they've really pinched it down to the best of their ability height-wise.
Yeah, and without windows on that second floor, I think trying to push that parapet, the building would seem way out of scale. So I think.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't disagree with your floor heights.
If approved, how long till you take a wrecking ball to that motel, and will you be throwing a pizza party?
Oh, it's Pi Day. That's a good question.
Construction, it really depends on, as soon as we can, assuming we're approved here tonight, we're immediately going to turn around and submit full engineering and building plans for city staff review. As soon as we can get through that and get the contracts in order, they're itching to go. So as quick as they possibly can.
Yes, sir.
I was just curious, how does the footprint of this building compare to like more normal, typical AutoZone stores?
Yeah, it's a good question. The footprint of this building, I think, is 4,300, 4,400, something like that. Let me get a better number for you. Yeah, 4,400 square foot roughly. The smallest building that we use elsewhere for a 1-story, 6,000. The bigger one that we typically use is 7,400 square feet.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Let me see if there's anybody in the audience who would like to address the planning commission on this matters. And any of you gentlemen want to speak at all, or?
Just curious what motel, I didn't look up the address, what motel?
That's the Serenade, I believe.
The first one on Woodward.
Yeah. And my only other question for you, sir, would be, we are down 2 members this evening. And why don't you stay up here just in case we have any questions? Do you want us to proceed with our vote? You're going to need to carry 5 out of 7, otherwise we can postpone it until next month.
I would like to proceed, please.
All right, you got it, sir,
thank you.
absolutely. Mr. Kroll.
With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, Mr. Kroll?
You know, I was kind of thinking what their hardship is, and I realized that the hardship is really mine. It's on my walking route, that whole town. I never know who's going to jump out in front of me. They could build a skyscraper as far as I'm concerned. I'm good. I don't think they were really asking a lot. I would expect that there would be parking considerations and a lot of other things that we see on Woodward that we don't see here. So I think a couple feet to just kind of conform to that. I can tell you a couple things. One, being in a neighborhood, I love it. There's a total lack of Bassett neighborhood here tonight, and they're normally here enforced on any Bassett issues, so they must be in agreement. I think it's a great project.
Mr. Klein, any follow-up?
No, I think we're here to discuss the height, and as for the reasons I stated before, I have no issues with it.
and I just, as Joseph said, you could make the facade higher legally.
The parapet portion, right?
Parapet, right. So that that would have been terrible, I think. So I really think, that even though I would like to see it scaled down a little bit, I understand you can't just because of the logistics of it all, so I'll be in support.
Mr. Rolfak?
I think this is a great design for not only for now, but the future, because say 20 years down the line, AutoZone changes to fly zone or something like that and needs bigger space. They set up a lot of parking there for another unit to come in here. And it unlike some other designs that could have came in here if they wanted to more max it out to like a ranch style. And knowing the business of how it is with architecture and dealing with clients who are trying to keep costs down, the more floor space between floor to floors you have, the more cost you have in materials. So they're trying to minimize as much as they can anyway. So I don't think they were going above and beyond anything that I would have seen out of the ordinary. So with that, I have no problem voting for this.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, then I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You're all set, sir. Motion
Thank you.
passes.
Thanks.
Get out that wrecking ball.
Yeah, really.
All right. Moving right along, let me catch up here on my computer. Item number D2, case number 190308, public hearing on the appeal of Windwalker Austin LLC, petitioner and owner for the following variances. A, alter, expand a non-conforming structure. B, waive 2.7 feet of the minimum required west side yard setback of 5 feet to permit construction of a rear yard addition to an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling located at 418 Austin Avenue. Mr. Murphy.
This site contains a one-story, single-family dwelling with a detached garage to the rear. Along the rear of the property, as you see in the sketch on the screen in front of you, the house maintains a non-conforming west side yard setback at 2.3 feet. For this particular size, particular width property requires a minimum or no less of a setback than 5 feet. So the current scenario is non-conforming. As you can see on that sketch, as well as the floor plans, the petitioner is proposing a rear yard addition that's in line with that existing exterior wall. Therefore, the addition wouldn't conform or would not meet the minimum required 5-foot setback. And the petitioner is seeking a waiver in order to be able to accomplish that and do the rear yard addition. I'll point to not only to this sketch, they provided a floor plan which illustrates in the thicker black line the addition that's proposed, a 10-foot addition off the rear of the dwelling. And what's helpful are the photographs provided by the petitioner to illustrate the current scenario along that side yard of their home. This is the view from the front or the west side of the house, and we can reference the rear of the dwelling, and you can see the current addition that's to the house and how close it is in proximity, the opposite view of what I previously referenced. The petitioner provided a written statement as well for you to review with regard to the request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Yes, ma'am.
Joseph, do you know when that first edition was put on?
No, I tried to find some records and I couldn't. I couldn't
Okay.
find any records to see if it required a variance.
Right, okay.
Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. Is the petitioner present? Please come forward. Introduce yourselves and tell us about your plan.
Hi, Ryan Barrett. Brett Barrett's my brother. Jesse's the contractor is going to be helping us. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is a property we recently purchased, and our plan is to move our mother up here, and we need to modify it to meet her needs. We're a special addition in the back to get access to the garage and also to add another bathroom that'll be suitable to her needs. If the restrictions of the zoning ordinance are strictly applied, we won't be able to move forward with this expansion. And approving the variance as requested will allow us to expand the back using this existing footprint, as you said. It's our understanding that the unique circumstances of the property, that it was built prior to the zoning ordinance referenced in the report, and to our knowledge, we were unaware of the property was non-conforming when we purchased it. It kind of, the modifications is what we were planning going in, just to be able to make it suitable for aging mother that needs to live in the neighborhood with us, so.
Any questions? Mr.
Yes.
Klatt?
I didn't see an elevation, but I assume the roof line will just extend back, correct? You follow that same lower roof line and just bring it back to the new addition?
We're
Okay.
gonna keep that same roof line, the same print going back. So nothing structurally on the, would be different in any way than what's there right now.
And then did you reach out to your neighbors at all on the west side? Any concerns or any
I
questions
did,
from the neighbors?
last week, my one neighbor I gave him, I tried to get a signature, he knew about the meeting, I thought he'd maybe show up, but
Okay.
he's not, I couldn't get a hold of the other neighbors though.
Thanks.
Which side was on?
That was on the east side. I met him, I showed
So
him.
west side, they were not available?
Yeah, they were unavailable on the west side.
But they were notified about the project.
Mr. Lopez?
Was there any attempt at all to try and design a plan that did meet the zoning ordinance?
Yeah.
The expenses of that is, it's out of ordinance, and if we came back in, he'd have a jog in the house, so it could prohibit, resale value and stuff like that. So you'd have the back of the house come in, jog out for a certain distance, 5 to 6 feet, and then go back into variance on that. Just didn't make sense in that design.
Any other questions? All right, not seeing any. I'm assuming there's nobody in the audience that wants to speak on this, but just in case, I'll open the public hearing and I will turn right back around and close it. And again, as I told the previous gentleman, we're down 2 members. We can hold off for a month or we can move forward. Completely up to you guys.
It's okay to move forward, thank
We'll
you.
move forward. All right, I'll bring it back to the side of the table. Mr. Klatt?
I think it's a fairly straightforward design. I agree if you push that back in to try to comply, that bedroom would be cut down to maybe 10 feet, give or take. So I think it's fairly modest. There's really no impact to the neighborhood as it's concealed behind the house. And I agree, it also would make for a pretty funky roof line if we had to push that in. So
Would you like to
I'm
make
in
that as a
support.
motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll support that
We
motion.
have a support. Any additional discussion?
I was kind of drove all around this house to try to figure, that, number one, there's a lot of things going on behind them on the side of them. And I thought that they could do this without anybody even know they did it, really. So I think it's one of those, making their dreams come true without the nightmare for the neighborhood, in my mind.
I think the reason why that they had to jog it in the first place is because that narrow driveway, the getting to the back to the garage. But I also believe that it's not positioned so close to the neighboring house because they have their driveway over there, so there's some space. So I think it's a good design for what they're dealt. So to speak.
Any other comments?
I think jogging in and out sometimes looks a lot worse than just
Continuing the
Building
roof line, right?
I agree. I was just wanting to know if they had gone through that exercise. That's all.
All right, then I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. You're all set, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
All right, moving right along. Item D3, case number 190309, public hearing on the appeal of MPB Company, petitioner and GLHM Properties LLC, owner for the following variances. A, alter expand a non-conforming structure. B, waive 0.07 feet of the minimum required east front yard setback of 30.7 feet. C, waive 1.5 feet of the minimum required north side yard setback of 5 feet to permit construction of an attached garage and second-story addition to an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling located at 1314 Cherokee. Mr. Murphy.
This site contains a one-story single-family home with a detached garage to the rear, and I'll reference the survey that illustrates the current condition. Again, the house, the driveway extending along the side of it, on the south side of the property to a detached garage to the rear. Petitioner is proposing to remove that driveway, that curb cut, and the garage, and construct a addition to the north side of the property, which would contain an attached garage. And the addition would result in a side yard setback of 3.5 feet. The ordinance requires a setback to be no less than 5 feet. So their resulting addition would have a setback of less than the minimum, therefore they're seeking a variance related to that. Secondly, they're proposing a second full story to the footprint of the existing dwelling, and that's illustrated on their floor plans. And probably simpler is the view from the elevation. There would be no second story above the new attached garage. The second story would be in line with the footprint of the existing home and go straight up. The existing home, I'll go back to the survey, The existing home requires a setback equal to the average of the adjacent homes, which is 30.7. The house right now is 30 feet. So the extraordinary slight nonconformity. The addition maintains that wall or that nonconformity, and therefore they need a variance in order to do that second-story addition in line with the front face of the home, because it would not gain compliance that slight difference. So they're seeking a waiver from that standard as well.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy?
Do you recall a change in the ordinance to allow for two-car front attached garage? Wasn't it fairly recently that was updated to 5 feet?
Has to be 50% of, not more than 50% of the frontage.
That was a newer provision. Having a setback of no less than 5 feet has been in place for many, many years.
Okay. With the attached garage?
Yes, that's been a common provision for many years.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, come forward, please.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for letting us show up here. Mike Matthews, Pennon contractor. This is Adam Keegan, my partner, basically the investor. I think this is a classic example of what Royal Oak's all about right now, and that we have an obsolete, non-conforming structure that we're proposing to bring up to date, so it'd be appealable to the common or the average buyer who would want it. Not a palatial estate, but something that would be very marketable. Referring to the garage in particular, from a safety perspective, there's an awful lot of parking on streets in Royal Oak. It's kind of necessitated by the single drives. The fact that on this particular house, you can't even get around the house into the garage unless you have quite a small car. Typical pickup truck like Adam drives, you have to stop, fold the mirrors in. It'd really be tough to back out of there. So the idea of having an attached garage just seemed to be so important on any kind of redesign. And from 25 years of firefighting, I just think about the practical situation of a family, kids, mom, older person, going in and out of that house repeatedly in a nice, dry, attached garage versus coming out to a possibly snow-clogged driveway and getting in and out of that car. We ran on a lot of people that have gotten injured in that very part of their life. So that makes a lot of sense to me. The idea of updating a structure that's totally obsolete, we're going to include what modern construction requires: fire stops, interconnected smoke detectors. All this sort of thing comes along with our project. So I think all the magic language that appears in the document here, we've complied with. You know, it's a unique situation. We didn't create it. We're looking for the minimum that would it take to create a marketable property. We're talking round and round about how we could do this attached garage in a narrower way, and it just simply can't be done. You know, to ask for 1.5 feet seemed to be reasonable to accomplish what we're about to accomplish. As far as that front setback, it seemed, 0.7 feet. To look at it, it's certainly not gonna, it doesn't protrude from the adjacent properties. Yes, it is 0.7 feet ahead of it, and we don't want to intrude any more. We just want to stay in line with that building.
Can I add on?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you for your time. Adam Keegan, and just a couple of things that Mike mentioned, and the reason we went with the garage that we did in this design, we basically started with the 16-foot door on the garage, and then flanking that, we're only really asking for 3 feet on each side of the door. As Mike said, the street, this particular street, there are cars up and down the street parked all the time, and I believe that a part of that is that most of them are single driveways, and the cars that the house across the street has a double driveway. They're parking their cars in their driveway, 2 in the garage at times. So we really wanted to meet that. We also took into consideration being modest with the width of the garage. We ideally it would be wider for a 2-car, but we wanted to not intrude too closely. And then also with not building over the garage with more height to the house. So it's a modest, it'll be a 512 pitch on the garage. So it won't really block out. And then one other thing is the neighbor to the north, her driveway's there. I've spoken with her, she's been in support of the project. And so it's not another house, so that buys a little bit more space. And actually, the way the the existing home is set on the property, it's kind of skewed to the south anyway. So just visually, there's a lot of side yard, and I think this is just a good way to utilize it. So just a few more things I could think of.
Any questions?
Any questions?
I have one question. Is it because this is a pretty big lot, 60 feet?
Yeah.
The reason for your variance is because the house is situated a little
It's very much
off-center?
to the south,
I mean, if you
yeah.
were gonna tear it all down,
Right.
you would be able to fit that all in, correct?
You probably could center it more. We wanted to try and we didn't want to change the footprint and to do all the utilities and everything. We wanted to keep the existing basement, so we're not tearing the basement down. So.
It doesn't look like a huge house in the photos, that's why because
Right.
we see houses with attached garages now all through Royal Oak on the 50-foot
Yeah.
lot, so I'm just wondering why yours kind of went a little sideways.
Yeah, well, I think maybe I would have to look at the plans of some of them, but I think the existing frontage of the house, they may have a different ratio of less house and more garage, so it fits. For example, if they have a 20-foot garage, they may have 20-foot width of a house, so they're at 40 feet, giving themselves 5 on each side. We're at 28 for the existing width of the house itself. Does that help answer why we need it rather than?
I mean, this is for the attached garage that you want so desperately. You could have gone and put that garage or moved another one over and just moved that whole driveway to make it a little more convenient.
Right.
Or could you have added the garage to the back?
Yeah, there's nice mature trees in the back that we didn't really want to interrupt on the side where the garage would go if it were on the north side.
Okay.
That was kind of one of the reasons for it.
Mr. Curtis?
Yeah, I thought I heard you say you started with a 16-foot door, garage door, obviously.
Right. Oh, sorry, I'm only 18 inches on each side, so 3 feet
Ah,
total.
yeah, good, because I was looking at the plans, it looked
Yeah,
like 18
sorry.
feet, 8 inches.
Sorry, that was wishful thinking.
So
I was saying
3
3
feet
on
total.
each side.
3 feet total.
3 feet total, so it's
Yeah.
only gonna have 18 inches on each side, yeah.
It's my memory that a small two-car garage tends to be 20 by 20. Does that sound right to the contractor with us?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
This is 18 and 8 inches.
It is. It's
So
it's
it's-
small, but again, we didn't want to ask. We wanted to be modest and respectful of the side setback.
Mr. Clapton, Mr. Ovac?
I think my only question is, I understand the garage width, but what about the mudroom? Is there a reason why the mudroom has to be that wide? Like, for example, we're always trying to lessen a variance. Is there a way that the mudroom can be pulled in a bit? Just curious.
I guess we just thought. So the last case you just had, the idea of the jut. I just like the smooth. Just it made sense to keep it rectangular. I guess is kind of the idea there. And having the space, but. Oh, go ahead.
The other thought I had regarding that was that everybody seems to have more stuff than they seem to have room for. A mudroom is a great, flexible kind of space for the kind of stuff that may go in a garage if it was bigger, but this one is, pretty cozy.
Yeah, the other case is a little bit more unique with that roof line. I mean, this one, you could pull it in and still make it look attractive, in my opinion, but just throwing it out there. Just want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
the description.
We have Mr. Ovac next.
I don't have a problem at all with your request for the .7. The garage, I think, is something you've made of your own doing. The thing I am worried about, you have it wide enough to almost be a two-car garage, but I have a feeling most people will not like how cozy it is and just turn into one-car garage. And to have more room with stuff, would it make more sense to actually narrow it up by maybe a couple feet and make it deeper and have it two-car stacked garage? That might be something that you might think about even if you get both variances, but
Right.
in my opinion, me as a homeowner would rather have something that I could stack back to back and have more things on the side than one that I know that I'm not gonna even bother with putting two cars in because it's too tight.
Yeah, my view on that, my own personal garage has a chimney into it, and the width from the chimney to the outer wall is similar to this 18.8. I do have space around the chimney. We park one car in it, but we have the double wide driveway, and that's almost more of the value and the convenience in this case. Like I said, jostling, shifting the cars. I think a lot of the reason why people are on the street is because with the idea of stacking the cars, I see that as a good point, and we do have the depth to do that, but,
And you could still have a double width. In fact, my parents, they have a double width with a side side spot on the side of the garage
right,
to allow for
yeah.
the extra spot.
No,
there.
that's a good point. I guess I'm thinking if one car were in it, the other third of the garage was storage.
Right.
The car outside could still be, next to, and the car in it could get out, and get past it. That's, to be honest, that's exactly what my wife and I do with our garage. It's, cause two cars, and I was speaking with people, two cars is, two-car garage rarely holds two cars unless it's in excess of, wider than this, but, if they really wanna get them in, and I can get two cars in mine, they can. It depends on their needs and their storage, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I was just gonna ask on the front yard setback, did you consider tweaking that? It's only, 7.7 feet, to move it
Yeah.
back, to bring that in compliance with the zoning ordinance.
Right, well, that's to the current, home. We actually set back the garage so that it wouldn't protrude beyond that.
Right.
So we would have had to set the whole footprint of the home back to get that 0.7 feet back.
Okay.
And we had originally thought of pulling the garage forward for depth, and then to not intrude on that further, we dropped it back, to consider that.
Yeah, my thought on this property, frankly, when I looked at it was, you've got a pretty significant lot. You've got 8,000 square feet. And, I looked at it, I thought, they're asking for a pretty modest addition and 1.5 feet on the side to sort of make a two-car garage work. Your option B could have been just to take the place down to the ground, and you could have built, frankly, a house that just would not fit in this neighborhood, but it would have conformed with our ordinances. I think, frankly, you're doing your neighbors a favor taking this route versus taking a much more intrusive route, which on a 60-foot wide, 134-foot deep lot, 8,000 square feet, you could really be a lot more intrusive, so.
Something, just to speak to that a little bit in not directly, but parenthetically, is that what I'm looking for?
Good, yeah.
I'm living in my second Berkeley house, been in there 24 years. I'm in Berkeley till 32 years. Adam grew up in Berkeley too. We're very used to these kinds of houses. I'm in one of the nicer streets, I think, in Berkeley. I'm not in a small house, but it's amazing how big houses are nowadays. What people are building and what people are buying. We wanted to, I guess, reflect our background. And this is certainly a much nicer house than exists there now, but it's not something that's huge. We're trying to think of the marketplace. We're just wanting to appeal to the person who wants to move into Royal Oak and who can't afford that $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 price tag.
That's kind of mid-price for Royal Oak.
I can't keep track of it.
I was shocked because I haven't been on Cherokee in a while, and I'm sitting there Googling these house addresses and sold for $550,000. Really? Wow. It's everywhere you go in Royal Oak today, too.
Well, procedurally, we have nobody in the audience, so I will go ahead and open and close the public hearing.
Well, could I just ask one more? What is the total square footage when you're done with this plan here?
The inside,
Yeah.
so counting the mudroom, living space would be about 2,550.
Okay.
So the rectangle under the home on the left, not counting what's behind the garage, is about 2,400, 1,200 on each floor, and then the garage is, another.
Yeah, that's
400.
not living space,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, so
thanks.
that's, yeah.
All right, well, we are back on this side of the table. Oh, do you want us to move forward? I'm sorry, forgot to ask.
I'd like you to move forward.
Mr. Ofac?
I'll make a motion just right now to grant A and B variances as requested.
We have a motion?
I'll support that.
We have a second? Mr. Ofac?
As I stated, I have no problem with them altering the nonconformance of the main structure. The garage, in my opinion, is a separate issue that I think is their own doing. This one is, the hardship is the house is where it's located, To try and set back the second floor 0.7 feet, not have the structure line up, would one look not appealing, in my opinion, but also wouldn't make sense structurally, so I have no problem granting those two variances as requested.
Yes, sir.
whereas .7 and 1.5 are a lot to ask for, I think I'm playing, living across the street from this thing again, and I think I'd be a lot happier when they got done than I am now, so I'm certainly supporting it.
Excuse me, is the motion to support only A and B and not C?
Oh, is there?
Just for A
Yes,
and B.
it's A and B
You
only.
can always discuss C, that was the portion I wanted to
So
partial out. It's not denying C, it's just not discussing C.
Any other discussions on A and B? You want this to handle this as a package with all three, or, all right, then I'll call for the vote on items A and B. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Mr. Anthony, I'll give you the floor back for C.
No, I'll let someone else.
No,
I didn't know if you had any additional comments, that's why I wanted to give it to you, so.
I'll move to grant C.
Side yard.
We have a motion to grant C.
I'll support.
am I missing?
And we have a second. Mr. Curtis?
Well, I'm assuming, I'm looking for C as the 1.5 setback, which would, 1.45 feet of the minimum required 5-foot setback that it would allow for this attached two-car garage. It's a very modest garage. They are working hard to fit that in at 18.8. Yeah, the construction we see now, the new construction we typically see nowadays with a front-facing attached garage is with a smaller, less wide amount of house visible to, and of course, there's more house behind that garage when you get back into the house. But you either have to tear this down and start all the way over, or try to fit a front-facing garage and need a little bit of a variance, or run a driveway down the side and put a bigger garage in the back on the other side of the property, which would, I guess, be the south side of the property. But in doing, I'm looking at aerial photos, you're taking down some mature trees to do that, and I prefer this option.
Could I interject at this point, or is it?
We're on this side of the table, sir. All right. Any other discussion on the motion?
I mean, I think the lot size supports this addition and renovation to the home. Although I disagree with the mudroom, I do think that the overall square footage is not excessive, and that does give you good storage space in that room. So like I said, I was in support.
Mr. Kroll?
I thought I already supported and voted for it, so. I'm totally confused at this point.
Oh.
I missed
At
that.
this
I
point, we're
must have been in Tahiti
just
when it
discussing
was
C.
omitted.
Ms. Anderson?
I'm 100% for getting rid of that 8-foot driveway. Those are just a nightmare. Whether you have snow, your neighbor puts up a fence, and it's just like you said, you're folding in your mirrors just to get down. I would have liked to have seen the garage at the back, and 1.5 feet is not a lot, and it is quite modest compared to what we're seeing, and it is a 60-foot lot, so I'm still mulling it over, but I think I know where I'm going.
Definite maybe on that one?
Any other comments?
Yeah, I guess my thought is it's they're trying to work with what they have, so I guess I just don't see it as being something that they've created themselves. I mean, the house was where it was. They're just trying to remodel it and expand it a little bit, but I don't see the garage as being something of their own creation. So that's my thought on that.
Mr. Kroll?
I think if they were looking for 4 or 5 feet, it would, I think they're asking for such a modest amount compared to the cost to knock it down and start over. I think 1.5 feet is pretty reasonable.
Well, frankly, I think they're doing their neighbors a favor also. I mean, I think Ms. Anderson hit the point perfectly. I mean, on those lousy winter days with that super narrow driveway, I mean, your neighbor's house is also in play. And if my wife was driving the car, the house really comes into play.
Did you run over one of your bikes or something?
Well, if there's no other discussion, I think I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
We have one nay, Mr. Olfex, so the motion does pass.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And I was gonna make a comment, but I would have been out of order then. I really gonna miss the serenade. No.
And that's forever on the record also.
Great memories there, were there?
No, not really. Visits there with the fire
I
department.
can't imagine how many calls you must have had to that place during your career.
Well, it's amazing if you look at the history, obviously, there's so many fewer motels,
Yeah.
and we went to every one of them many times, so as those numbers come down, we can turn the attention to other calls. Yeah.
And similar, the neighbor across the street of this property said she was wondering when the Love Shack would be gone. So, I don't know, it wasn't an official motel, but maybe she knew something.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any other business this evening? All right, then I guess we are ready for the mystery motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion,
There we go.
second.
Good.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.